All right, guys. So I just want to talk about my journey with Suboxone, how I started on it, why I started on it, what happened while I was on it, what eventually got me to uh, decide to stop. So let's see. I'm 34 years old. I grew up in the Bay Area, California. Um, I around the age of 19, found out how much I liked Vicodin, finding it in somebody's cabinet or something, codeine, things like that that you first try in the beginning. And from the very first one that I had, I knew like that's what I needed. Like, whoa, like I felt so comfortable and calm and confident and handsome and like everything that I wanted to be, right? So and then it really started snowballing downhill at about the age of uh, 20 when I found a dealer, maybe, yeah, 19, 20, whatever, when I found a dealer for the first time. And it was in my hometown. It was like fucking 5 minutes away from my house. So, right, that was like, yay, right? Looking back, it's like, no. So, and he was selling Percocets, right? So it was just like, next level up. Now I am taking a stronger drug and I have more access to it, right? And started out 2, and then you take 3, and da, 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 da. You know the whole story. I don't need to go through all that. We all know how the progression goes, right? So between the ages of 20 and 24, I was in rehab 4 different times, 3 different 30-day programs, and 1 60-day program. The last 2 programs I was in, I was really like the most serious that I ever was about wanting to really stay clean. And like after the 4th one, I stayed clean for a year and a half, completely clean from everything, and it was really great. I really wanted it. I was in the program. I'm not doing the program right now, but there's a lot of things from the program that I learned. I'm just gonna say the program, and there's a lot of things that I take away from it and keep, up here and in here to help me get through a lot of things. Because there's a lot of good in everything, and there's some bad too. But we won't talk about the bad. I say a lot, is what it is. Let's see. After staying clean for that last year and a half, I had a bad breakup. I had moved with a girl down to San Diego, and I relapsed twice in the time that I was with her. Once while we were in the Bay Area, and then once after we had gone down there. And looking back on it now, she must have just been like, "This is what life is gonna be like with this guy." And so she told me she wanted me to leave. And so I came back to the Bay Area, and I just was like so miserable. And within weeks of being back, I had completely relapsed. And I was driving to San Francisco to the Tenderloin to walk the streets, to cop OxyContin, and I was probably taking 380s a day at that point, something like that. And just right back ripping and rolling, and had no responsibilities and didn't care, didn't give a shit. I was mad at her for dumping me. No self responsibility for anything that had gone on. So at that point, things started getting ugly quick, and simultaneously, I had started another relationship with another woman, and I actually still happen to be with her today. So one day I went to San Francisco after work, like I always did. This time I was there to cop some methadone, and at this time I was copping methadone because I think I had a plan to go to a methadone clinic and start a maintenance program there or something. Who knows. So I figured I would cop it on the street until I had because I had a date secured with them. I had an appointment, but it was not for a week or so. So you can just stop using, right? I got to work. I got responsibilities, right? So let's see. Went to San Francisco, was walking the streets, and copped some methadone, 4 methadone pills, 10 milligrams each or something like that, and got popped like undercover cops from every direction, pull up, swift handcuffing. Didn't even have time to like take them or put them in my mouth, which is of course what we all would want to do in that moment, especially if we hadn't had our dose in a long time, which I hadn't since the day before. So it was like, ugh, and then they pull them out of my pocket and yada yada yada. So I went to jail for 3 nights in the Tenderloin in San Francisco, withdrawing from methadone, and that was my bottom at that point. I had been dumped. I was in jail. This new woman that I was with was on the edge of saying peace out too. Things were bad. Things were bad. And when I got out, I think I remembered, because I had been to the methadone clinic before, but just for a 21-day detox, and I had remembered seeing all the people coming in and out of there. And of course, all the stories that I heard from all of my friends in the program that I had, become close with over that year and a half. And I had known enough to know that methadone was not something that I wanted to be on, right? So I called a guy who had been my sponsor back in the day, and he recommended me to this doctor, a Suboxone doctor, and he, at that point I was just kind of like, whatever it is, I'm just, I got no more money to go to a 5th rehab. No one's gonna take me. No one's gonna pay for it. I really don't stand a chance, just knowing myself and knowing how addicted I was and knowing my compulsiveness, like just being in my same using environment, so to speak, and just trying to like kick for like 7 or 8 days. It had never worked for me for any period of time. I would always relapse the moment I had a chance to. I need like a month. To just be away and heal and change, minimum, right? So anyway, I called the Suboxone doctor, made an appointment, and got my first script. And at that time, he was prescribing me 2 8-milligram pills a day, so 16 total. And I had already taken Suboxone before, like I had copped it on the streets, and a friend had given it to me here and there, when he needed something. And I knew how strong that stuff was. Like I knew that like a little bit of it would get you by, right? And I also had always in the back of my mind somewhere kept that I was not going to be on this stuff forever. It was never something that I intended to do, was to be on this stuff forever. And so I figured the less I took for however long I was taking it would benefit me in the end, right? And also, I never had insurance for this stuff, so money was always an issue. Every pill I took was more money out of my pocket too. So there's all these considerations to make and reasons why I didn't take 16 milligrams a day. And looking back on it now, because I'm 27 days now in, and I'm not better all the way, and I still have symptoms, and energy is still, and sleep is still, and I was only on 6 to 8 milligrams a day, and towards like the latter half of the 7.5 years, it was much more like 4 to 6 milligrams a day. And as a side note too, I only ever took generic too. And looking back on it now, and most people I see on forums and videos talk about the strips. And if you've done any research, you know that not because they're strips, that's not the point I'm making, but the fact that they are name brand means that they are absolutely what they say they are as far as milligrams of buprenorphine. And when you're talking about generics, there's a variant, there's an allowance, of like 20%. And you know that if there's that kind of allowance, that these companies who are selling their pills for cheaper are going to make them cheaper, and they're going to cut corners wherever they can, right? So my thinking is that if I feel like I was always taking just a little bit less than whatever I was it said on the bottle or whatever, just because I was always taking the cheapest generic available at whatever time I was taking it. So it's just a side note. I'd be really curious to see in the future the studies on people who took crappy low-end generic buprenorphine over an extended period of time versus people who may have been on name brand stuff for the entirety of time, same milligram, and just see if what kind of variance there might be in what they went through. So that's just a quick little side tangent. So I was with the original doctor for about 4 years in the Bay Area, and then one day I showed up for my appointment, and there was caution and like police tape all around this building in San Rafael, by the way, like super nice, affluent part of town. Doctor's office right smack in the middle, not like some seedy, shady area or anything like that. And it was just like police tape, and then I go there, and there's just a note on the door, and I call my pharmacy because I actually still had I still had a refill left, even though I was going to see my doctor at the time. I don't really remember how that all happened like that, but you know what? That's not what happened. I called the pharmacy first. That's before I went to the doctor's office to refill my prescription. And they told me, sorry, your prescription is no longer valid. Your doctor has been, freaking arrested by the DEA. And that was an ugly feeling. If you ever, you know that feeling of like, oh my God, I don't have my medicine and I have no idea where I'm going to get more. Like, that feeling. And it's a bad feeling. So then I went to my doctor's office to see what was going on and found out that it was covered in police tape. And if you do research on buprenorphine doctors being arrested, you'll find lots of that and lots of people who went through the same situation I went through. So at that point, I had to panic. I think I called my old sponsor again, and he recommended me to this one lady who was able to prescribe me stuff for like 2 months, and then she was no longer able to prescribe stuff, so I had to search for a doctor again, and I found one. And it's just like at that point I started to, it was so easy for 4 years is my point here. Like the medicine was cheaper. I was prescribed generic Subutex, which like most doctors won't do for people for an extended period of time. But I had never been a snorter or an injector, and I pissed clean for a long time, and I don't know, but maybe it was just California and it was more lenient. I really don't know, but that was the cheapest stuff you could get. Generic Subutex pills, as far as I understand, is as cheap as you can get it when it comes to paying out of pocket. And so it was so easy then, and my doctor only made me see him every 3 months, and it was $150 to see him. So you're talking, like $50 a month for doctor's visits, and then my prescription was not cheap, but it was much cheaper than it became when I moved here. So eventually I moved to Nevada here. I moved to Las Vegas. My wife and I had an opportunity to live in a home that we're in right now, so we came here. And when I came here, I obviously had to find a new doctor. And wow, what a different world it became, and what a new financial struggle this all became when I came here. The doctor that I'm able to see here costs $275, and you have to see him every month, and he'll only prescribe Suboxone. Thankfully, he'll prescribe generic, but still Suboxone as opposed to Subutex. So now I'm being forced to take naloxone, which I don't need, which is just an extra crap chemical that I'm putting in my body so that the doctor can not feel like he's prescribing something that's potentially going to be abused in certain ways. It had nothing to do with the best course of care for me, because the best course of care for a person who's been on this stuff for 7 years, has never abused it, has no track marks, no evidence of snorting things, and is clear-faced and clear-eyed and clear-headed every time you see them. You should give them just what they need, which would be the buprenorphine in my case. So it's a really shady thing, like I get why they do the naloxone, and I get why it's there and why it's a necessary thing for certain people, but like it shouldn't just be like this blanket thing, like, well, we're only going to prescribe this because it's safe for us. And it turns out to be a whole hell of a lot more expensive. It was almost like 2/3 more expensive, like $250 a month for 23 pills. It was ridiculous, right? $225 a month for 23 pills, and that was like Walgreens' cheapest generic Suboxone. So $275 a month for the doctor, $225 a month for my medication, $500 a month now, where before I was spending $50 for the doctor a month, and like a third of that for the medicine. I mean, it was like maybe $100 a month, and now $500 a month, right? So now it's not just something that I can shake off financially. Now it's a financial issue too. And looking at it now, I'm glad that happened, because if things had just stayed easy, who knows how long I'd still be on this stuff. Things needed to get hard. Now I want to just show you guys something here, just to give you an example of how things got hard. Home theater is my hobby, my love, my passion. Here used to sit a center channel speaker, and here used to sit my left speaker, and here used to sit my right speaker. And you see all those cords down there? That was my 5-channel amplifier that I paid $1,000 for. This little sad empty deal right here is where my 13-inch subwoofer sat. I'm not pointing all this stuff out to be like braggadocious right now. That was where my surround speaker was, my other surround speaker. These are things that I spent the last 6 years saving for and putting together. And over the past 3 or 4 months, there's other things that I had to sell that I didn't even point out just now. But these were like my things, like the things that I really, really loved and thought I'd never get rid of. And I'm finding myself hawking all these things on eBay because I have no money, the doctor and all of it, and it's just like right back where we started. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Like, what am I really doing here? So I decided in this last doctor's visit, the typical doctor's visit, walk in, take your blood pressure. How's everything doing? Any problems with Suboxone? No, doc. Here's your prescription. Here's your $275. Thanks for the 3-minute visit. Really appreciate it. $275. I'll stop with that. So I just was like, you know what? This is the last one. This is the last one. No, I didn't. I'm just not a taper person. For me, that would just be like longer term suffering, and I would prefer acute suffering for a shorter period of time. At that point I'm taking 4 to 6 milligrams a day, and I've got 23 pills left. So I stretched out those 23 pills as long as I could, or not as long as I could. I just I stretched them out, but not that much. It was like by the time I got to the last 2 weeks, I was taking like 2 milligrams a day, and then maybe 1 milligram a day for the last couple of days. But like, this was not like a proper taper like you might see people suggest you do on certain sites. People will tell you get down to 0.5 milligrams for 6 months. So this is nothing like that. This was like, from a lot of people's perspective, this was like really asking for it, what I went into. But that it's just that, for me, when you have that moment where you're wanting it and ready, that's what's more important than what your dose is. It's more important than what your finances are at the time. Like, that's what you really need, from my experience, to get through this, is that want and that drive to live and to get your life back. And I had that, and so I was like, fuck it, like, whatever it takes, however much I'm on at this time, I'm just gonna, this is my last one, that's it. And so, again, I'm in a place where I don't have to work right now. I'm really, 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 really grateful for that. It would make this really, really hard. I always recommend to people, if you have any opportunity to take some time off from work for any reason, and just not have to do a whole lot, it will make all of this a whole lot easier. But for all those people who do have to do those things, I really respect you. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot. So that's just kind of like where I started, and I had lost myself. I really had. I just gotten to the point where I had no drive. I didn't want to leave the house ever. I wanted nothing to do with people socially. So everything just kind of turned on me over time. It wasn't like that the whole time. It really wasn't. Like, there were times where I had probably convinced myself that this stuff wasn't so bad, and why not be on it forever, and when you have that moment where you've had enough, only you will know it, and nobody can tell you. So that's what happened to me. And so 27 days ago, I jumped off at whatever milligram I was at, 1 or 2, and I've gone through a lot. and I'm still not done. But there's just no turning back, and things do get the slightest bit better all the time. They really do. It's harder to tell. It's not like when you're withdrawing from OxyContin. You know, like yesterday can feel a ton better than the day before. It really can, and you just don't get that with this. Like, you really have to want this. Like, if there's nothing else you get from this, you really have to want this. I don't know how else it would work. And so I hope you do. But if you don't, you'll get there. If anybody wants to talk to me or contact me, feel free. Comments below. Ask for my email or phone number or whatever. We can connect. I hope everybody's doing well. I'll try to make some more videos in the future. I love you guys. Be good.